Hi, my name is Rich Baker, and this is Improv Breakdown.
Wow, that was fun. That was like one of the first fun auditions I went to where I wasn't in my head about everything. So
Like,
Wow.
yeah,
Many different things.
my hands. It's like
that was it.
What suggestion? I was that.
Welcome to Improv Breakdown. My name is Rich Baker, and I have with me improviser, musical improviser, musician, director, coach, teacher. Handsome Nelson Velazquez. Thank you so much for being on the show, buddy. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me on the show, Rich. I appreciate it.
You rock the bald look way better than I do. Well done.
Do I really?
The way you've got the beard down, and it's very sharp. You framed everything really nicely.
Yeah, my barber, who's me, does a pretty good job with some clippers.
I'd keep going to that guy. He's pretty.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, I don't even have to tip him. That's the best part.
Fair. That's fair. It's totally fair. Sir, you've got. I could talk about a million things, and we're going to get as much as we can. But let's start in the beginning. What first attracted you to improv? What was your entry point like?
My origin story starts like this. I was in the wilderness. No, I actually got into improv by accident.
Oh, nice.
So I was actually going to be the next Eddie Murphy. If you can't tell, we look a lot alike. Okay. And I thought ever since second grade, I wanted to become a comedian. And so I went to a work function, and we're meeting our whole team. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I started telling a story, and then 45 minutes later, I kind of noticed that everyone's laughing and everyone's really listening to the story. And then I realized I was doing stand-up by accident.
Nice.
So I was like, cool, let me go home. Apparently I can do stand-up, and I don't even know it. Let me go home and train. And I just Googled Chicago comedy training in Google. And again, I'm older than some of the people watching this. So this is back in the day when Google wouldn't give you like a preview. It just gave you like a one-line sentence under the search.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And so it was like, Second City, home of, Steve Carell and John Belushi and, all these people. And I'm like, I know those guys. They're all comedians. They're funny. Cool. I'm going to go there. So I called them, telling them I wanted to sign up for the comedy class. And they're like, cool, we'll put you in improv level 1. I said, okay. And so I showed up, and I want to say her name was Balana Blackman. That's what I want to say is her name. Blackman was definitely her last name, but she was my level 8 teacher, and she's like, all right, welcome to Second City. We're going to teach you how to act. And I raised my hand. I'm like, I'm here to be funny. And she's like, don't worry. It'll come. And that was it. So
you were just like, well, I'll just stay.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, well, what else am I going to do? I'll just wait for the funny to happen.
So did you, when the class was over, did you go and try and find an actual stand-up class, or did you just say, screw it?
No, I was just like, okay, I'm ready.
I guess I'm an improviser now.
Yeah, I didn't even know what that was. That's the best part. I just thought it was just going to be like, we're going to hang out and we're going to play dumb games and eventually they'll teach us jokes, and it wasn't until, running in a comedy sports, I started learning joke telling.
Wow.
From an improviser's perspective. So I was doing stand-up through open mics, but not really understanding what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I burned out on the Chicago scene, which is super competitive. Especially in stand-up, I burned out within 6 months, and I was like, you know what? I could be at home, and it's 12:45, and at night I gotta get up at 6, and I signed up at 8:00, and I still haven't gone on.
Yeah,
with 3 people, and they're not gonna laugh. That got old really quickly. So I didn't go back to stand-up until 2 years ago, and then I sparingly have done it since then.
Nice. So it's always been something you've loved, but you're mainly once you found improv, you just stuck with it.
Yeah. Stick with what you know, right?
Or what you accidentally get put
find.
into. Oh my god, that's amazing! Wait, why are we not standing up and telling jokes in front of? And obviously your first teacher, even though you don't remember her first name, like even though she must have been good enough for you to like if you didn't enjoy the class, you probably wouldn't have stayed. I'm assuming, right?
You know what though? I was let's see. I was when I started improv. I was so this is 2005. So I was somewhere in my let's see, 27, 28, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And so I started late by all intents and purposes, and I'll put an asterisk behind that. But like I was, very, and I still am very alpha male oriented.
Yeah.
So I think I would have stuck with it just to say that I did it.
Nice.
And just to prove that no one could tell me that I can't do it. But I probably wouldn't have gone on to spend thousands and thousands of dollars training and making none of that back. It's great.
But now I can hold an invisible bottle like the best of us.
Let me tell you, can anyone do laundry? This guy can.
So when I think about you, I mean, I obviously know he's an improviser, but I really think about you in terms of music improv. Like you've done so much music improv, hip hop improv, different genres of music improv. So you started improv by accident. When did music come into play?
So music came into play at the same time. So I finished my first year of improv at the Second City. Then I took a few acting classes because they were prerequisites to get into the conservatory, which is a fantastic program. Let me tell you. I'll tell you more about it later. So
yeah, we'll get there.
When I was taking the conservatory portion of things, I dualed up. So I was taking both at the same time. So I'd say about a year and a half into my training is when I took my very first musical improv program.
And what got you to do that in the first place?
Well, I'm a musician first, so I've been playing instruments since I was a wee lad, and
little lad.
And I a lot of times feel like I'm much better at that than I am at acting, but it was a comfort zone thing for me. And then when I realized that, hey, I can maybe even put that with my acting and put those two together, yes, please, let's do that.
Hell yeah.
When I came to Chicago, I'd been in a bunch of rock bands back in San Antonio, is where I'm from.
Yeah.
So I was in a rock band, I was in a metal band, I was in I was in band, with a trumpet. I'm a trumpet player to start with.
Wow.
But when I found out, we can improvise with music too. Okay, cool. I've taken jazz, so if it's like jazz, great. Like we just make up melodies and. Cool, we'll make up songs. And for the life of me, I can't remember lyrics to any childhood songs. That's kind of a thing, having a Latino background. I didn't learn all the right words for any of the songs.
Oh, okay,
and
interesting.
So I've always been making songs up as I've gone along, or just making parody songs or things of that nature. And when I found out there was an entire program dedicated to this art form, I said, heck, man, sign me up. This is my
I love it because I like you. I started out. I was a musician before I got into acting at all or improv or anything, and I feel like a lot of us who are in that situation. I hear that, which I think for other people flies in the face of when we go, "Oh, music is like a safe place for us to improvise." Whereas I think improvisers who look at music improv sometimes who don't have music background go, "That's the scariest thing in the world." But for us, we're like, "Oh, it's nice. It's comforting."
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it, man. I love being on both sides of the piano. With musical improv because it's. I feel I did maybe 9-10 years of being in front of the piano, and then finally had to kind of convert to the other side out of need. So went to the other side. I was like, hey, you can't play piano. Okay, I'll learn it. We'll figure it out.
Were you a piano player before?
No, not at all. No, I still don't really consider myself a piano player, honestly.
You're a music director.
I'm a musical director. Yes, that I can do, but a piano player, not so much. It's kind of like this. There's a difference between a guy who can play drums and a drummer. There's a big difference. I can play drums, but I don't consider myself a drummer. That's why I kind of see myself as a piano player. I can musically direct. I know the structures well enough to be able to follow somebody if they're using structure or if they're not using structure. I know enough about song composition to be able to support things, But if you ask me to play a melody with my right hand and hold it down with a walking bass line on my left, like that's not going to happen.
I dig that. I mad respect to all musical directors because I've only music directed kind of like you, just in times of like no one else was available, and I'm like, because I'm a piano player, but improvising piano because I just don't know genres and stuff. But anyway, yeah, like, but I love that the idea of like there's drummers and there's people who play drums. I'm like, yep, I dig that hard. So what have you seen so you started Improv 2005, so you've been at it quite a while. What have you seen change either in the industry or in your neck of the woods or performance, or just talk about like what you've seen, the evolution?
Oh wow. Yeah, that's a good question. Like, what has changed? Well, when I feel like you and I are of an extinct breed, and that breed is we got the last of like the vestiges of improv from the 60s and 70s and 80s. Like we had those teachers as our instructors and those cats. And there was kind of a very, and you can debate whether or not this is something that you agree with, but I feel like it's the last kind of breed. We're the last breed of the people that were taught like there's a dividing line between your personal feelings, your personal experience, and the stage. Like the stage is a very sacred, enclosed, siloed space. So you leave your stuff at the stage, and then you pick it up on the way out.
Okay.
And what I've seen now evolve, and I'm not here to debate whether or not it's right or wrong. It's just
no. I'm fascinated.
Is that now that's no longer the case, right? Now there's a lot more social involvement with what is going on in the world, and that affecting the stage. Yeah. I see a lot of really cool art being made where we're taking this art form beyond just the stage. Like it's applicable to life, right?
Yeah.
And so much more applied improv is starting as a result of that at this point. So it's interesting for me to like watch things that people really glom onto socially or even like culturally, and then they're applying it to the stage and then having that reapplied back to the culture. And it's really fun and interesting to watch.
I love that you said that. Yeah, because like one of my big goals for improv, and one of the reasons that the show exists and many other things is that I want to elevate the performance side of improv. I want to see us as performers, those of us who are good enough to actually warrant it, to have the same kinds of audiences and paychecks as good stand-ups. But I love that you're talking about like there's applied improv is killing it. My first episode with Natalie Shipman, she was talking about functional improv, where she was helping people who have like using improv to help people with Alzheimer's. I'm like, it's like improv is, when we started, no one knew what improv. You didn't know what improv was.
Still don't.
Literally, that's fair. That's completely fair. But now it's growing and evolving to this big thing, and I love that. But yeah, we did kind of have the last tendrils of the old school teachers. I dig that. I never thought about it that way. So, what is a piece like? Let's say I'm gonna take my first class, or I'm thinking about taking my first class. I'm a new improviser. What advice would you give?
Wow, new branding improviser. Wow. That's a good question. Let me think about that, because I give so much I give a lot of advice in my level A's. I personally love doing I like being the first face people see in improv. I like being the guy, like, if Nelson doesn't give you a good enough experience for you to continue, then I've failed you. And I like the challenge of converting someone to catch the bug, or to at least be interested enough to take that second class at that point. I would say this: if you're the kind of person that is in improv class and has no real plan beyond, I want to learn some life skills, then what I would say to you is that's exactly what you want to take improv for. Like, there's so many things that we can apply improv towards in your regular life. And if you get a good enough teacher that can show you, that will take time out to show you how you can apply yes and to an office meeting, or how developing a character might help you get through a presentation, right? Like, those are really, really good skills that will live with you forever. If you're the kind of person that's taking a class to get on SNL, then what I got to say is the best advice I could give you is that you need to trust the process and trust yourself and trust your own path. What is your path to get there? And as hard as it is, because I struggle with it as well, like you can't look at somebody else's path and be like, I wish I was doing what they're doing, or I should be doing what they're doing. And I'm guilty of it too. And I have to always remind myself of like, man, my path is completely different, because even as I've excelled in my own path, when I'm wishing someone else's path, like there are people who are looking at my path and going, gosh, I wish I was doing what else is doing.
Yeah.
And so all of us have this kind of going on. You need to establish your own identity and your own base for your improv and for your art, and stick with that. It will evolve as you get older, as you learn more things, and as you try new things, it will evolve. But sticking to what's true to you is really what's the most important thing, what sets you apart from everybody else.
Oh my God, I wish you were my improv teacher in 1999. To be fair, I wouldn't have listened. I knew everything back then. But like that is such good advice, because I mean, and I had to learn that lesson the hard way for a very long time. I kept wanting to be Steve Carell or wanting to be, someone else, and it just kept biting me over and over and over. That's wisdom, my friend. I love it. Talk to me about your journey and the big milestones in your journey, from going from student of the craft to, hey, I'm performing and I'm feeling good, to, hey, I'm now a teacher.
Okay. So starting in 2005, I lived at Second City, Chicago for 4 years, taking every class I could think of and trying out for every possible show, student show, main stage. So I worked pretty much all of the kind of student training center kind of things that you can do in that time frame. Granted, it's not nearly as expensive as it is now, but back in the day, we had the Outreach and Diversity program. I did that a couple times. I did the student writing 6 shows. I did I did 1 or 2 BizCo. That's the business side of Second City. Second City Works.
And just to clarify, writing 6 shows back then, what it meant was like there were students in a writing program who wrote a show who needed a cast of actors who would get it from the. So I did some of those myself. Yeah, those were great.
I did a bunch of those, and then a year into my training, I joined Salsation Theater Company, which is Chicago's oldest Latino sketch comedy group.
Hell yeah.
So I joined them very early. And again, I knew everything there was to know about comedy. So obviously it was a good choice. And so that was a turning point for me, my first milestone, joining an independent group. And what I tell all my students is find something that is independent of an institution, of a school or a theater. Find something of your own that you can mold and you can baby and make your own. Yes. So during that tenure, I'm still with Salsation. Technically, I was kind of doing Salsation. I was doing Second City at the same time. Training classes, and I was developing my writing skills, my sketch comedy skills, and my improv. And then around, I did some stuff with some independent improv companies between years 4 and 9, just like independent companies that would pop up and be like, hey, we want to send you out to do some business stuff and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of that, still did a lot of independent stuff. I produced a ton of stuff with Salsation. I started a musical improv group called Recapitulation after I trained there. So I did 3 years with those cats, training other MDs before Second City would come in and snatch them up and put them on a boat, and then I'd lose my MD. And so
and every other theater in the country.
Right. So
we got a good music director. We need them for a cruise ship in Hawaii. Thank you. But we needed her.
So I did a bunch of that, and then I'd say somewhere around year 9 to 10, I finally realized that I was starting to know what I was talking about, and I put "know" in quotes. Not necessarily that I knew what I was talking about, but I had an opinion. I had a really strong opinion about what I was doing,
based on tons of hours logged.
Right, and a mutual friend of ours, Bev Bailey, she had asked somebody and shared with me the answer. She asked somebody, how long should I improvise before I start teaching? And they told her straight up 10,000 hours.
Malcolm Gladwell, sure.
And or 100 shows.
Okay.
Whichever came first. And I was sitting there going like, okay, 9 years in? Yeah, like, I'm
that's
pretty
enough.
close to that. And
Well,
but
especially how much you were doing. I mean, you weren't like just doing one, so you were doing everything.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I have a fantastic family. They don't know who I am, so I'm never around to get to know them. Father of the year. So my so around 9, 10, I started like figuring out like, hey, I've got like strong opinions about things, and I can actually articulate what I want to say and what kind of improv I want to do.
Yeah.
And then I started involving. I became the artistic director for Salsation around 2009, and I had a lot of alpha male tendencies then, and I had to show people like Salsation's here to stay and we're the best. And so I pushed an initiative to have 4 different productions going off at the same time.
Wow.
Which was unheard of at the time. And so we had an improvised telenovela, we had a sketch group, we had an improvised mariachi band, and we had a video group, right? And we did all 4 of them at the same time. And when I kicked that off, that started like, going like, hey, you should teach people how to do this as well. Like you can teach people like how to produce stuff. So the very first class I did ever was online. It was an online course on how to produce your own show.
Perfect.
And I was like, nobody can take that away from me because like it has nothing to do with my acting skill. It's all about production. So that was like year 9, 10. And then like year 11, I ended up moving out to Northwest Indiana and connecting with the scene out here. And the scene out here is more like community theater based. And so I schmoozed with one of the local community theaters, said, hey, let me put up an improv program for you. And then that got me kind of my first real solid gig of actually teaching on a regular basis, teaching actors to improv. And ever since then all the opportunities like festivals and a bunch of other stuff started happening. Started teaching on my own. I went out of Chicago for 2 years teaching around the nation. And then I finally came back and I had a moment where I literally said to myself, I've got to go and get hired at the Second City now. Like I've got my own identity. I know who I am as an actor, and I want to share this with as many people as possible. And I got a hook up with an introduction from somebody and auditioned, and I got the gig.
Wow.
So that kind of brings me up to where we're at now.
Dude, and that's one thing we haven't mentioned yet. You live in Crown Point, Indiana, right?
That's correct.
Which is, I don't think a lot of people would go, there's the hotbed of improv comedy, right? Like you wouldn't think, oh, there's a master's level teacher living in Crown Point, Indiana. So what's it like in, not being in Chicago or LA or New York, but being in that town?
So I'm 45 minutes southeast of Chicago. So Chicago's an hour away, right? So, but there was only one improv team in all of Northwest Indiana. And Northwest Indiana runs between halfway between let's say Gary, Indiana, and Indianapolis, somewhere around there, and then going across almost into Michigan, right? So that's they call it the region, right? Mm-hmm. There was one group doing it, and when I came in, it was literally like I had a 5-year plan of like, in 5 years I want to have a community. Like, I want there to be more than just one group available, and I've got so much that I can share from Chicago.
Yeah.
And so it was hard, and it's still hard in the sense of, I think it's taken me, we're now year 9-ish, 8 or 9, of me trying to get the wheels moving on improv. I think In Productions has done a fantastic job of like introducing and bringing as much improv to the region as possible. And we've got now like 4 or 5 groups, which is better than, a 1. But it's not where I want to be. I don't think that's going to actually happen until this virtual theater turns into a brick and mortar place. And that's something I've been working towards, of providing a space dedicated for improvisation, for sketch comedy, for stand-up to start with, and provide a hub for them to come to. And the way I envision this theater is that it's not meant to be in competition with the bigger theaters in LA, New York, or Chicago. It's meant to be a feeder system. The idea is, you come to me, I'm going to get you ready to go to Chicago or LA or New York. You're ready to compete at that point. So
It's a dojo. You're like
yeah,
you're
absolutely.
getting people black belts so that they can go compete at the big competitions and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Absolutely, because I know when like you and I started, man, like there wasn't really. It's just like deep end, have fun.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Ah, man. I could ask you a million questions because, like, I think the number one thing that I saw, and it definitely affected me, and it seemed to affect a lot of people I know, was that improvisers didn't take their own initiative to do their own thing, right? And like I think most people would think leaving Chicago, even if it's just 45 minutes, would feel like I'm in Crown Point now. And you were like, no, I'm going to turn Crown Point into the AAA team that everyone goes, oh, you studied it, you studied within productions? Are you kidding me? You know,
Right.
that kind of thing. Like, did you always have that ambition, that business mindset, or is that something that you developed over time?
Oh, I would say I benefited from being in the civilian world, meaning the non-improv world,
Yeah.
for 7 years doing corporate IT work. I was doing
Mm.
corporate IT work. So, doing 7 years of corporate IT, I learned a lot of soft skills that they don't teach at your art school, right? Like how to run a meeting, how to organize things, project planning, budgeting, management of people, things of those
Yeah.
things that you really need from a production perspective. So when I came to improv, um, I had already been I had been working 7 years in IT, and I'd also been collecting and putting bands together in San Antonio. So like I came in and I was like, wow, why is this so hard for people to put stuff together? Like literally, you make a list and then you check off the lists, and that's what you do. Like it's not that hard. And
Well, yeah,
so
but I also feel like that's kind of the equivalent of like someone who's been improvising for 7 years going, "Why aren't you just yes anding?" It's like, and it's like it isn't that hard once you learn
yeah,
it. But like if for those of us who like didn't have any experience with leadership or organization or anything, I mean that was like burrow, just blew our
yeah.
minds.
And yeah, and so I came into it kind of knowing how to do it, and
Yeah,
but also, man, necessity is the mother of invention. Yes, cliche.
I've heard
Um,
that. You should write that down.
I should, I should sell a book and a T-shirt with the.
I like it.
Um, what I kept seeing were like I'd be in the student group and it would be like, we need a title for the show, and then like nobody would kind of pick up the initiative to do things. So I'd be like,
Yeah.
I'll do it, and so I by default and by necessity. I kind of became that guy that people would be like, Nelson will do it. He likes doing graphics at midnight for our badly attended
His family
show.
understands.
Right? And so and not to crap on anybody else's initiative at the time.
No,
And I
no, no, no.
apologize if I am, but
Not at all.
it always felt like for me, like I'm a leader by default. Like I'm the guy who will be like, I'll give you a chance to lead, and if you don't take it, I'll take it if I have to, or you better have better ideas and be able to do things I can't do.
Yeah.
Like if I can't do it, cool. Like with mad respect, I'm gonna give it to you. Run with it.
Yeah.
But if I can do what you can do, it's probably not that good. So
Fair.
let's move on. Difference between a guy who can play drums and a drummer.
And a drummer. Yeah.
Right?
Well, and you and I have such similar stuff. I did not realize how much we had. I knew we were both from Texas and a lot of other things, but I didn't realize, like, because I was also that leader by default. A lot of times going through classes, and people are like, "God, I wish we had a practice group," and I'm like, "Well, we could just form one." And they're like, "Would you do it?" And I'm like, "It does. Okay, I'll send an email." like, like, yeah, we can meet in my living room. Sure, it's fine.
Right.
But yeah, but you were a leader by default, who became a leader by choice.
Exactly.
And that's amazing. Like I think one of the biggest things that we need in improv right now is we need leaders with big ideas who are doing exactly what you're doing, creating things.
Let me flip that around on you. What are some of the things that I'm not gonna say that there aren't leaders in, but the things that you wish you could see more leaders in? Like, are there specific things from your side
In improv?
Yeah, in improv. Like,
Yeah.
are there things that you're like, man, we need a leader to help us do this and do that.
Oh yeah, I mean, on a small scale, I think we need a lot of mini leaders to just put, just to say, hey, classmates, we're good, we work together, let's do more. Let's meet outside of class, let's do that. But as far as the bigger scale, like I think Middleditch and Schwartz did a really big favor for all of us by finally, like, Improv has a comedy special. We've never had a comedy special. We've had Improv's been on tape. It's never been before. And so that was a big leader move there. And I think we need more leaders to do. I would like to see more people step up doing things like that and going, we're not just going to tape this with our iPhone. We're going to hire, a camera crew. We're going to have 3 cameras and we're going to edit or whatever it is. We're going to put good content out there as opposed to, like, my students all the time, especially now that we're in COVID world, they'll ask me, they're like, well, where can I watch some good improv? And I'll send them tapes of my shows, which, they're good shows, but the quality's not great. And I'm like, if I was teaching you stand-up, you wouldn't ask me that question because it would, like, where do you see good stand-up? Where don't you see good? You see stand-up everywhere. And, like, I want improv more on that. I want improv to be touring. I would like improv, in those, like, theaters that have subscriptions where they'll do, like, Oklahoma and then an independent play and all that stuff. Like, I think there should be improv troops, kind of like Baby Wants Candy and different things like that should be going around. I could rant on this all day, sir. But but what I love is that you are a perfect example, and so many other people I know, and I'm trying to do the same thing of, like, these leaders are starting to emerge, and I just want to keep encouraging, teaching, supporting as many of them as we can find.
Yeah, I agree, and I like your point of, like, I think, again, this may be a vestige of our instruction.
Yeah.
The famous Michael Gelman, who's now at Second City Toronto, was my teacher during conservatory.
Mine too.
He's the one who I quote the most in classes. And the thing that he taught me was that, improv is ultimately improvisational theater. And the part that a lot of people forget about is the theater part of it.
Yeah.
And he kept saying things like, I would love to see an improv show where people are paying $25, $30 a ticket, just like they would go see a musical or a play.
Yes.
And it blew all of our minds because we're like, what? $35? Like, no, there's no possible way that could be done.
Right? Because we didn't value ourselves enough. We didn't value our own product enough.
Absolutely. And so, now with my teaching, the way I give back to the community is to continue that concept of, like, know your worth. I use a hashtag constantly on social media. Hashtag know your worth, or I know my worth. Know what your worth is, because this that we're creating has so much value and has so many applicable end results that's worth not only the sweat equity that you put into it, but also the entertainment value that people receive.
Yes.
And that is so, like, I love this art form for it because I have my own little video podcast called Improv Sucks. And
I've been watching some of those.
Why would you name it Improv Sucks? And I'm like, because it's tongue in cheek. Like, my entire life has changed because of improv, and it sucks. And people tell me that it sucks all the time. But, like, look, I'm teaching across the United States. I'm playing internationally right now. I'm doing everything I've ever wanted to do artistically. It's because of something that is not material. It's not something that you can touch or you can buy. It's something that I helped create and that has my own voice in it, as well as a conglomeration of everybody's voices, past and present, right? Yeah. So, like, that's what I love about this, like, this art form, and that's where I want to, like, see, like you said, like, I'd love to see the production value, and people take their art more seriously, maybe more seriously than they need to for a little while, just so that they get used to the idea of, like, listen, if you want to go do the Kevin Hart Stadium with your duo, you're gonna have to put in the work at the 3-person attended back of the bar show. Yeah. You want to make that the best show possible, the best show. Like, you're putting your heart into that so that it'll grow and give you that sense of professionalism that you can carry on, and it'll scale when you get bigger and better at that point. I ranted.
No, I love it. I wanted you to, and you did, and that was beautiful. That was a rant worthy of. Whoo! I love it. You know, you reminded me of something that I don't think I've ever given Michael Gelman credit on this before, and I don't think I've ever even said it, but I've thought it so many times has helped, and I'm sure he probably said this to your class too. He would say, well, what's going to get Ma and Pa Schaumburg down here to watch your show? And for those who don't know, Schaumburg is a suburb of Chicago, meaning that who's going to, you know, leave their suburb, try and find parking? Like, why is your show good enough for them to do that? And I never quote him, but I always think about that. Like, is this show good enough to get the people from Schaumburg?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Michael Gelman. God bless him. And hope he's doing great in Toronto. I don't want to take up too much of your time here, but where do you see improv? Like, we've talked about what's happening right now. Where do you see it in the future? What do you hope happens in the future?
Ooh, so pre-COVID, post-COVID, huh?
Yeah. Back in PC improv or post-PC improv?
So what I saw the trajectory, what I saw happening with improv, and I don't think it's changed per se, but before everyone had to socially distance themselves, I saw improv becoming much more I guess specialized and nicheized.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. Good. I kind of saw where like we don't have the boom that we had in the 90s and in the early 2000s, right? Improv is everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, right. It's in Crown Point, you know, it's in Lafayette. Okay. Like it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Where in the past it used to be like you could go to some smaller town and they had nothing and they knew nothing about it, and there would be these booms, but everybody's doing improv. So what everybody's been doing is like specializing, nicheized their improv and finding their voices that way.
Yeah.
And what I was kind of seeing was like celebrations of the niches. So like I kind of saw that should be a song. Right. Like I see like festivals, like a Comic-Con of improv, but like dedicated towards Shakespeare or dedicated towards Latinx or whatever. Like I was seeing like that trend happening, and then the pandemic hit and shut so much stuff down. And then everybody for the last 3 months has been trying to recontextualize what is improv. What is improv online? How do we communicate what we were communicating so effortlessly before, but through a medium that doesn't have the connectivity between the people watching and the people performing, and even the performers between themselves?
Yeah.
So the last 2 months, what I've seen is everybody just readjusting, like recalibrating what they want to do, how they want to do it. And what I kind of see, at least I'll give a short term and then maybe a long term. Short term meaning 6 months to a year, until there's a vaccine, until there's a lot of really good testing. All the surveys I've seen have been people are still scared to go out. The audiences aren't going to come back as soon as you open the doors wide open, throw them wide open. So,
and not all the performers are going to want to come back. Like
exactly.
I'm not going to feel comfortable coming back. Like probably as soon as everyone.
Right. So what I see in 6 months is like everyone upping their game online, and what I'm really excited for within 6 months to a year, because this medium is so similar to television, so similar to movie. You're going to start seeing more and more production being dumped into the framing of the improv than necessarily the improv itself. So the production value is automatically going to go through the roof. People are wowed by this and behind me. When I go there, they're like, "Oh my gosh, this looks so good."
It does look good.
Are you in a theater right now? And I'm like, "Yes, of course I am." We need donations.
The theater of my mind.
But like what I see is like I've seen some improv shows where like they're using different software to really bring more production, bring you to that Netflix level. Like of like the menuing and pre-show and post-show and different kinds of content with regards just to improv. So like the improv is not necessarily taking a back seat. It is literally just we're focusing on the production because, like you said, what's going to make you now was it Monpa Schomburg, who's now watching Netflix, to stop Netflix and go on to Twitch and watch us perform live.
Yes.
What's going to be the difference? And so the competition now is different, but I would say it's even higher, because now we're dealing with budgets. Like, people have millions of dollars in budgets producing shows, and you're going to see people getting together and raising that production value of their improv shows. A year from now, after that, let's assume, pray, that there is an actual vaccine that is safe and people start venturing out on a regular basis. You're going to see a big dip immediately in online shows and attendance and all that. But I think what you're going to start seeing, the trend is going to be a hybrid working model. It's going to be live shows, online shows, and a hybrid show of the two put together. So you're going to start seeing a lot more, I'm going to just name drop him, Jay Suko's in the world.
Yes.
You're going to see Jay Suko performing in Japan virtually one night, but maybe he's heading off to the Netherlands the next day to perform physically. And you're going to start seeing kind of the shift of this hybrid model, because none of us want to be caught with our pants down for the next pandemic, or for the next, crash that happens, the next thing that stops people from coming into our theaters. None of us want to be in the place where we're vulnerable. So I think a year from now, we're going to really see like that online, that physical have its own worlds, and then you're going to see that Venn diagram share of a hybrid show between.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to throw out, I'm going to say two words here, and these two words are a memory for me, my favorite memory of you. I want to know, it's no worries if you don't, but do you remember Texas Bankers?
Yes, it was our audition for, I believe, to get on a director's team.
Nailed it.
And it was, Rick Walker was our director, I think.
Well, I think Rick Walker took you, but James Honey took me.
James Honey took you.
So what it was a group audition for 6 different directors at Second City, and basically we all auditioned as a group, and then they kind of, draft style went, okay, who do you want? Just to tell what happened was, we're both from Texas. I think the suggestion was Bankers, and Rick Walker was like, Texas Bankers, and I just remember learning a lesson that I still keep with myself to that day is we crushed that scene because we were like, gar darn tootin', here's your money, and we just jumped into those like Texas characters. And I remember thinking, like, if I got the suggestion Bankers, there's nothing stopping me from adding Texas to it. And just, I don't have to say it out loud. Like, I'm going to make that Texas, like, I could just make that choice, and you can give yourself that stuff. And I'll never forget that scene with you. It felt like a very pivotal lesson that I learned. And I'm so glad that you remember it too. That warms my heart.
Yeah, it was great. I remember from walking out of the audition going, wow, that was fun. That was like one of the first fun auditions I went to, where I wasn't in my head about everything. So I just remember walking out of there, and then like getting the call back was like, oh my God.
Right? Oh, good times, my friend. Where can people see you? What do we want to plug? Tell us.
Oh, we want to plug Improductions LLC is what we want to check out. So if you go to improductionsllc.com, you will see shows, workshops, classes, everything that a regular theater has. And now we're adding more content starting this Friday, tomorrow-ish. Yeah, this week.
Yeah, by the time this comes out, it'll be in the past, so it'll already be out.
That's right. So we're adding Q&A series similar to what we're doing here, but I'm kind of going down the direction of applied improv. Nice. So taking my first episode is going to be about teachers who are improvisers and teach in the public school system, and talking about their transition from the classroom to the virtual classroom.
Hell yeah.
And how improv facilitated that journey and what they plan to do with improv moving forward. So I'm going to be finding like people who aren't necessarily improvisers, but do improvise every single day.
Wow.
And trying to show like, hey, again, so many life skills that improv can give you. And here's a person who is not an actor or maybe acts secondarily to their primary job, using improv and making their lives better.
Ah, brilliant. I cannot wait to see that. That's going to be fantastic. And I'll link that and anything else you want me to link in the show description below. Nelson Velazquez, you're amazing. This was so great. Thank you so much for being on. Good luck. Keep fighting a good fight. Keep being the leader that improv needs you to be. It's so fantastic to watch. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Rich.
Thank you so much for watching. Also, in the comments, if you have any questions about improv or anything improv related, please ask, because I want to do some solo episodes every once in a while where I just answer questions. If you'd like to be notified every time I drop a new one of these, just subscribe to the channel and click the little bell icon, and YouTube will let you know. Thanks, improvisers, and keep making each other look good.